My Best Friend's Exorcism. Definitely an attention-grabbing title. I saw this streaming on Amazon, wanted to give it a try, and I was aware that there was a novel, only very vaguely. Like I had heard, it kind of has a following. The reviews were very good of the novel by Grady Hendrix, and just the movie seemed to have come out of nowhere. So I mean, I guess that's kind of the case these days. Well, pretty much since movies and books became intertwined since the very beginning of things. Like it always seems like the movie deal is locked before the book is even published. So I mean, there's that. But yeah, it came out pretty much out of nowhere to me. But I wanted to give it a shot, and there's definitely the horror element to it. Well, obviously, Exorcism brings to mind all the fun kind of Linda Blair head spinning action, vomiting pea soup, and there's definitely shades of that in the movie. But it's I'd hesitate to even call it a horror movie, though it does have kind of the horror vibes to it. It really kind of boils down to is that this is kind of this, it's like a coming of age teenage drama kind of thing, which as a young Canadian growing up in late 80s, early 90s, watching a steady diet of Degrassi High, and I don't know, Ready or Not. Canadians, raise your hand if you understand Ready or Not. This is almost like irresistible to me. I do kind of have a soft spot for these kinds of things, which is actually surprising to me that I had never seen the film Eighth Grade, which one of the stars of this movie, Elsie Fisher, she starred in, and that kind of like exploded her career. Like she got a lot of good press for that, and good reviews and all that. But it's a story about two girls in high school, Abby and Gretchen. Abby is Elsie Fisher, and Gretchen is Amaya Miller, and they're practically inseparable. They're really tightly knit. They love each other. They're BFFs and all that. And this movie also has the added benefit of an '80s backdrop. So this takes place in the mid '80s. So we get all the '80s soundtrack. It opens to Aha's "Take on Me." They're talking on their telephones. Their rooms are adorned with all these '80s posters. They have a crush on Boy George. Who wants to tell them? I don't know. But what kind of sets things off is they go with their friends to this lake house for the weekend, and really just, I mean, never go to a lake house. If that's a lesson to '80s horror movie teenagers, just don't go to the lake house. But they go there. They try some acid, actually. Despite all the warnings from Nancy Reagan, it's like that very special Webster never happened, and they're kind of wondering, did this really work or not? And then they kind of find this shack in the woods. The two girls kind of go off from the main group, and this entity attacks them, and in particular, it takes hold of Gretchen, who is then possessed by this demon, this servant of the devil, and all that. And it's not exactly the traditional tied to the bed Linda Blair thing, but she has this evil force within her, and it's causing her to act, very out of character, very out of place. But then, kind of come the elements of, well, is this really just teenage angst? Is this really just kind of the sort of very normal things of friendships kind of dwindling within these formative years? So that kind of plays the aspect to it, and kind of explores all of these things, like the teenage angst and stuff like anorexia, homophobia, that was just out and about in the '80s. Well, I mean, it's everywhere, I guess, but rape culture and things like that. Like, one of the suspicions that Abby has about Gretchen is that she's acting the way she is because she's experiencing trauma from a rape that may have occurred through one of the other friends' boyfriends, who's kind of like this, pig. Is the guy from? He's one of the, I think, one of the bullies on Stranger Things. So, I mean, obviously they have the Stranger Things '80s vibe for this movie, which I'm sure caused it to get greenlit all the faster. But this whole culture of nobody's believing her, and then she becomes alienated from all her friends. They think she's just trying to spread rumors about Gretchen and all that. But meanwhile, this is playing exactly into the demon's plan that's taking its hold over Gretchen. And we kind of learn later on through a demon expert that's exactly what the aim of this kind of demon is to do, is to separate friendships, keep the host isolated so that it can permanently take over. And apparently this is a very common thing in that there's at least one demon possession per class in modern high schools in the 1980s. So that's the advice we get from the expert, which is this whole other thing where it's a Catholic school, though Abby is Jewish, but whatever. They have this big kind of presentation at an assembly where it's like these strong men, fitness experts who are also down for the Lord and things like that. The Lemon Brothers, so they're lifting weights and playing music. They're having a big old lemon party in front of all these kids, and then one of them, Christian Lemon, played by Christopher Lowell. He sees in the audience, he sees Gretchen, and he knows something is up, and Abby recognizes that, and later kind of comes for him to help, and eventually, as the title would suggest, there is an exorcism. It's her best friend's exorcism, and I guess there's spoilers in this if you really care, and they go through the whole exorcism thing, but he turns out to be kind of a flake and kind of bugs out, but Abby is able to kind of push through and really kind of fight for her friend, fight for her and stuff like that. Because even with all the horrible things that she's doing and the horrible things that are going on, she knows deep down that Gretchen, the real Gretchen, is still there, and all that. So that's kind of how the whole movie kind of works out. It's not bad. I think there is some struggle with the movie to grasp a proper tone, where, I mean, this could have been kind of a dark comedy, I guess, a little more kind of extreme, a little more, I don't know, jaded of a movie where they kind of take things a little further. But no, I mean, it plays itself somewhat seriously with the stuff it intends to take seriously, and the stuff that is intended to be humorous is pretty obvious that's what the intention is. So there's, I don't know, there's no room for interpreting interpreting the tone of the film. So I don't know. I think it could have gone a little bit darker and could have I don't know, been more satirical, I guess. But for what it is and for how its tone works, it's fine. And there's some good stuff, some shocking stuff. Like there's this good kind of subplot about the girl who's struggling with an eating disorder, who's drinking these shakes, which turns out to be tapeworm eggs, and we see this giant tapeworm coming out of her, and that's pretty cool. And like for something that's straight to Amazon, the effects aren't bad. I mean, we have this whole thing at the end too, where we actually we see this demon exorcised from the girl, and it's like kind of this, I don't know, Dobby looking thing. It's not too impressive. Meanwhile, it probably cost a good chunk of change from Amazon's budget to do it. So that was a little disappointing to see. So I mean, it's kind of like a mid-level thing. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there who could do a better analysis of how this would, say, compare to the novel itself. I took a quick peek at some reviews where people were saying like, it's not really anything like the book. So that's something to keep in mind. But just like kind of going in fresh, not really knowing much at all. I mean, you can kind of expect the teen drama stuff, the social issue stuff, the sort of horror elements to it, and of course the 80s nostalgia, which is as big as ever, doesn't seem to be going away. You can either embrace it or not. I'll embrace it. I somewhat enjoyed the movie. I wouldn't say I was like over the moon for it or anything like that, but it was decent. Despite anything in the writing or plot, acting is solid. Elsie Fisher, Maya Miller, they're excellent. Good supporting cast. They sell it for what it's worth. So yeah, might want to check it out. That's my review. My Best Friend's Exorcism, the new movie from Amazon Studios, streaming near you. So we're doing 31 Days of Horror here on the channel, new horror movie reviews throughout the month. Be sure to stay tuned for more. Be sure to comment, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll see you next time, and until then, stay scared.